Call the Rush Lake Watershed Restoration Summer Meeting, July 18th to order, 7:02 p.m. In attendance tonight are all board members except for Gary Page and Seth Muscovich at present. Also in the audience we have 4 members, one of which is Melissa Curran, our project manager with Stantec. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Let's get started. Before this evening, I have circulated electronically all meeting materials to those who have email. Those who do not, I've provided paper copies. First item on the agenda is the prior minutes of April 18th.
I'll move to approve the April 18th minutes.
Second. Motion made by Ron and seconded by Bruce to approve the April minutes. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstain? Minutes are approved unanimously. Okay. Next up, the treasurer's report. Due to time constraints in getting out board materials, I did not provide a more formalized treasurer's report, but I have prepared one which I will distribute at this time. Or on this side. And these are on the audience as a copy of these as well. There's 2 pages here. Prior treasurer's report provided by Todd with a balance of 98.5697. The first page reconciles cash on hand, both in an unrestricted category, which is general funds, and a restricted, which is reserved for our grant project. An activity from 3/31/2019 is displayed there. Cash balance as of June 30th, 2019 is unrestricted cash of $9,684.33 and a restricted balance of $18,615 for a grand total cash of $28,299.33. Activities since Todd's treasurer's report include the receipt of the DNR 75% of the advance of the grant being advanced, which Todd mentioned in our April meeting. The payment to Mayville Insurance for director and officer and general liability policies, and in and out that results in a net zero for memorial contributions from Rush Lake Watershed directors on behalf of Ken Merck, who passed away in the last couple months, and payment for a memorial for the service. Brat Fry revenue costs and a donation with a net profit of $568.36. Purchase of brochures pertaining to our grant of $135, and donations from the Cause of the Mondays event of $128, which does not include the 25% food sale contribution that Vines and Rushes makes to us. So I'll be expecting that to come in the future, but as of today we've got 128 in the register. The second page of the report breaks out our balance sheets as of June 30th and December 31st, just comparatively. The first 2 lines are cash, which we just walked through. The third line is accounts receivable of $10,750, which amounts to the town pledges to support our grant of $4,500 in total from the 3 towns who pledged, and also the DNR's remaining 25% of the grant of $6,250. Other assets of $651 is the prepaid insurance through Mayville Insurance, the liabilities and net assets section, accounts payable and accrued expenses of $2475. That's a bill from Stantec for year-to-date services performed underneath the grant of $1,933.75. And accrued bills from the State Lab of Hygiene for $542 for water sampling in May and June. Unearned grant revenue are the portions of the cash that we're going to receive from the DNR and the towns to support the grant that we have not yet performed the work on. So it's categorized as an unearned grant revenue category. And finally, net assets, that's just your retained earnings number, which increased based on primarily donations we received through the Brat Fries and whatnot. So this concludes what I have prepared for today for the Treasurer's Report. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I got one question. Is that a yearly payment of $869 or is that a 6-month payment of insurance?
That's yearly.
Move to accept the Treasurer's Report.
Second.
All right, let's move to accept the Treasurer's Report with a second from Bob. Any further discussion of the Treasurer's Report? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstain? Treasurer's Report passes unanimously. Okay. Next item, lake management planning. First item underneath the agenda item is a progress update. I'd like to start that and then kick it over to Melissa. The steering committee has already met on June 5th. The steering committee is working to fill the open DNR wildlife and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service vacancies, which were positions we bookmarked for those agencies earlier, but still don't have an individual for, but we're working on it. At that 6-5 steering committee meeting, we discussed the project as a whole, created 3 work groups to drive aspects of the project, specifically an open house work group, a survey work group, and an adaptive management work group. And the next full steering committee meeting is August 21st. Melissa, do you have any overall or high-level remarks on the steering committee or overall project management before we dive into the various aspects of the project?
I don't think so. I thought, that everyone seemed really engaged, and, we found out that the county is doing some pretty high-level planning in partnership with Foxville Watershed Alliance, so that proved to be a pretty, will hopefully prove to be a pretty good partnership for the Rush Life group. So, no other comments.
Does anyone have any specific questions or comments about steering committee and its performance from a high level before we go into the specific components that we're working towards? If not, we'll go into that. The following handout is in the copies that the audience has in the lower right-hand corner, I believe. It says LPL 169519 reporting and a heading. For the board, we've got some more handouts for you, and this will be revisited at the end of the lake management plan. That's what Dr. Christo section as it relates to compliance and reporting that I'm doing with the DNR. If you just give that a skim, it's going to look pretty familiar because those items were all items contemplated in our grant application, and they all are enumerated in our budget of our grant application. So there shouldn't be anything new or different there. It's just a recap of what it is and what has been reported to date through June 30th. So to go through the projects in here, the first item, State Lab of Hygiene, Water and Solid Testing. Those are all billings that are going to come from the State Lab of Hygiene. That includes both the water and sediment test from the lake bottom for total phosphorus. That's the one sediment test that they're doing. 542, we're right on pace for where I would have thought we would have been. We could have had some additional sampling done so far, but we haven't had any 3-inch flash flooding rain events. that warranted an additional sample collection. Those are things that we have put 2 different events in the budget for the project, which I would have thought would have came already, but we haven't had anything significant that didn't fall within a day or 2 of an existing, I was going to go out and sample anyways event. So those are $300 potential that should be an actual, but might show up later in the project. The second line, in-kind donation, water collection support, that's just the value of my time to go and collect the samples and get them to the State Lab of Hygiene. The third item, in-kind donation, steering committee, board participation. That's the collective volunteer time of us sitting at the table now to walk through the project. When we're meeting as a steering committee, when we're meeting as work groups underneath the steering committee, the future outreach that we're going to do, and events like the Brat Fry and Fines and Rushes Cause of the Monday event. So far we've got over 2,000 documented. And when I say documented, I mean it's documented with the forms the DNR requires me to report it to them on. So I've got it fully substantiated and ready to go off to the DNR. So every one of these numbers has proof of it in this binder, right? So we're on track there. That number's doing just fine. The fourth item is education and outreach. That's a Stantec billing item for $4,400. It does include some other items like the materials that we have printed for events. So far that $135 that's in there for actual, that's the brochures that we had printed, which are in a brochure holder on the wall, on the floor over there, the nice looking ones. Those, that's the bucket that those fall in. Melissa, will you just talk for a minute about your thoughts on education and outreach and how we get to that 4,400?
Sure, so that would be the public open house, if we have any other sort of marketing, fundraising type events. It would be mostly staff time, some material expenses, we painted the brochures, we needed more brochures.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Melissa on that component? No? And we'll move on to the plant survey and reporting. This one is getting started next week, Monday. This is the Wisconsin Lake and Pond agreement to do a point intercept survey on Rush Lake. And Jim Charles and his team believe they have the resources they need to do what they need to do, which is going to be sampling at these point intercept locations. I've got a few of these to circulate, but not enough for everyone. We just pass that down. Sure. And then the audience just relates to these. You've already seen that.
Seen that a bunch of times.
So on there, it identifies there's 781 points, and each of them is within 120 meters of the next point. Jim Charles from Wisconsin Lake and Pond has access to additional watercraft if they need it, if they have navigability issues. I offered them my skiff and boat, which will be in the water. In addition, I'm going to be going out on the lake this weekend to scout to make sure that there aren't any navigability concerns in channels they need to use to access certain spots on the lake. And just for what it's worth, we had a prior plant survey that was done where a number of the points weren't able to be accessed due to navigability. And we had openly spoke at a previous meeting that we can help identify ways that they could get to some of those points. And I just wonder how we coach them to wander down some of these channels to get there. There's a couple obvious spots to get to. One being, I'm going to just move over to the maps for a second. One being a square that's more or less located here, which was an old spray area that you can access with 2 different channels. I'm sure there's a point, intercept point or 2 in there. And also, That might be and back by Curtis's Island, the water that kind of hugs the island around the sides. I'm sure there's a few points back there. But beyond coaching them to follow some of these channels on the east side to those more open pockets, I don't know that there's a lot of other areas that we can say, go here and then follow the shore, and then maybe you'll get to one additional point up by twos or something like that. So I just wanted to open it up for your feedback, because I'll be in the boat scouting, and we'll be relaying that information on X places off the beaten path they should consider visiting when I meet with Jim and his team on Monday morning before they go out on the water.
How many points are they going to try to define? Is there any?
It's on the sheet. So there's 781 sampling points. It's every one of these black dots is a sampling point.
But of that many, where there's inaccessible with heavy rushes, how are they going to get to those points?
It'll be like the last survey. They're not.
They're not. Okay. So realistically, the 781 points might end up being 100 or 2.
I feel like it was like in the 200 range that they could get to last time, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So if nobody has any other bright ideas, I'll go snoop around the main channels that are out on the lake, going from the south landing up through main water up to the north end. I'll wander over to Curtis's and include the spray area south of Curtis's to make sure there's nothing that's going to cost them half a day getting hung up somewhere.
All the new spray areas are open now. In the center of the lake, in the south, in the northeast, halfway up. Almost to the outlet. What would you call that? North of where Brad hunts?
I don't know what I would call that.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking because I collect a lake water sample there.
You're talking about the last spray areas? And
those are all accessible now.
And they're accessible, yeah. And that was what, 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
For
16 they were sprayed?
Yeah. August of 16.
Yeah.
So it's just in the middle of the lake. If they have even a handheld GPS, they should be able to figure it out pretty easy.
Yeah.
He's saying that, but
We didn't give them a shapefile of those spray areas, but we certainly can.
I haven't looked at a downloaded map to see if they're showing up yet, but they.
Yeah. But we did identify them all, that figure that we have. So I sent Jim a shapefile of the Cattails where we had a map, but I can easily send him the shapefile of the treated areas too.
Did you do that? Mm-hmm. And how quickly could you do that? Because he's out on Monday to
Yeah, we can
do
get
work.
it to him tomorrow.
Okay.
If they follow the channels in the center of the lake, they'll get to them.
To the spray areas.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're that far off the beaten path in the south either.
No.
They're right along the main thoroughfare.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wish I could be there. I can't. It's inventory day for me, so I can't make it.
That's fine. Does anybody else have anything with the aquatic plant survey? The on-water aquatic plant survey will be?
With a survey of this type and style, I wish we could have a photo, a map like that there, a photo map, where the rushes were really defined. I mean, this area is rushes. I don't know if that has to be a satellite photo or whatever, but one picture would be worth 1,000 words. Other than having all. I know we have to do this point thing. I understand that, but I wish we had one map, one photo, like one of these, showing exactly what
When you say rushes, do you mean bulrushes?
Well, cattails. I'm sorry, cattails is what I should.
Vegetation.
The vegetation.
So you want to see like an aerial imagery that has polygons for cattail areas mapped.
Right.
Yes.
We have that already.
You do.
Yeah. Not a big one, but
Yeah.
figured.
We'll have access to that.
So yeah,
Online.
I mean, Brett has it.
It was part of our NRDA grant application and what we were working on last fall for the DNR Invasive Species Control Grant.
And that's the layer that I gave to Jim. So we mapped out the cattail based on 2017 aerial imagery. So we did that over the winter where we drew polygons around all the cattail. So there were about 2,800 acres of cattail. So we have that layer, and that was provided to Jim. So when he goes out on Monday to do a survey, he'll have that layer on his GPS unit, and he'll be able to field verify if what we did remotely matches what's on ground. So he'll do that for us.
Good.
Anything else with the plant survey that Jim Charles will be doing this coming week? Okay. Move on to the next item with the public survey and analysis. It's another item where Stantec has a big part of helping us with that, but we also have a work group with to develop that and conduct it. So I don't know, Melissa, do you have anything else to add on that? Or more to come?
Spoke with the DNR, had a good meeting. We go by the name of Jordan from the DNR, who has a lot of experience, and we discussed development of a questionnaire, so it's not a public survey. We really felt because it was going to be a very targeted audience, we needed, some targeted questions to ask that audience. So the more appropriate term is a questionnaire. So the committee will work to develop a list of questions, and then we will work with Jordan to refine them, and we will then get that out in a variety of means through online public survey, perhaps people sitting at boat launches, people do mailers. Part of the committee's job is to really figure out who our target audience is and how are we going to get that survey in front of them.
Any questions on that? No? Okay. Overall project management and oversight. This is a Stantec bill item exclusively that comes here. We're in for 1781 thus far. No surprises for me at all. We're just plugging along, right, Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay. Next in kind donation, that's what IKD is, project management and oversight. That's a Stantec doing work but not billing us for it component to come. Next item, sediment collection with lead and seed analysis. Kyle Herman let me know what they're looking to do is come out the second or the third week of August to collect those sediments, and after that that would be tested with Stevens Point conducting the lead and seed testing included in that $1,790. The $3,100 is donated time from Stevens Point and discounted billings on the testing that they're performing as it relates to those items. So they won't be out for a while. Doug's unearthed some items to help Kyle hopefully pick some spots where we can draw a good comparison with past surveys that were done for lead, and that's about all I think to say about it at this time. Does anyone have any questions?
What's the date, Kyle?
Second or third week of August. It was squishy because there's...
How do I get on the list to be notified what the day is? I'd like to be there.
You just got on the list. You were on the list.
I know, but who's going to contact me and saying we're going to be here August 17th or whatever?
Me.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. Next item, muskrat use analysis. That's one that, Melissa, would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we wrote the grant, there was a desire by the board to get a better sense of what is the muskrat use on the lake. There are a lot of different ways to do that. For about $1,500, what we came up with is we would just develop a GIS layer that identified, based on the best available imagery that we can get, the location of muskrat homes. So we did have the DNR fly this winter and collect a few photos, but they're not really geo-referenced, so there's no way for us to very accurately relate the photo with the physical location on the ground. So we did a little research to find the best available imagery, and we did find some LiDAR data or some Whitrock data imagery that we feel is very accurate. I think it's 2018 imagery, and you can see muskrat homes. So we, Stantec, would like to develop a web map where somebody with a login could be able to just go in, zoom into portions of the lake, and just put a point using the cursor. We'll set up a system where you can just select the feature that you want to record, put a point on the map using your computer, and do that throughout a section of the lake or maybe the entire lake, depending on if somebody has time. Stantec could certainly do that. We could have staff spend time doing that, but Brett and I discussed maybe opening up to someone on the board if they had an interest in spending some time. It's really just going to be a pretty monotonous task of scrolling through the whole lake, zooming in, and putting a little dot every time you see a muskrat house. And it's something we'll set up for you. It'll be very user-friendly with a secure login that you can log into our web map, and I can sit down with somebody and show them how to do it. It would just be a cost savings to the project if we perhaps had somebody else do it other than Stantec. So we thought it would be a good use because it's a pretty easy task, and that we would be able to use that money hopefully in something else.
What was very vivid is when the DNR took photos out there. I think it was the second or third year after we reflooded, and there was just the right amount of snow where the snow hung up on the rat houses, and it was just, again, one picture worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So Melissa mentioned that she and I talked and thought a volunteer might be a good option. I think it's a good option for the project because pick Melissa or someone else at Stantec, they're billing the project $100, give or take, an hour. So, but on the other hand, you can sit in front of your computer with a cup of coffee and go click, 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 and say, I'm done for now. I'm going to go do something else and kind of peck away at it over time. And that counts as a donation to the project of $12 an hour. And we save $100 an hour of their time in real money, which we can use on something else.
And that's what I did when I mapped Cattail. It took me probably a good week. It was a little mind-numbing. I'd sit down for a little bit and draw polygons around Cattail, and then I'd have to say, okay, I'm done for a couple hours. And then I'd have to go back. So it's a pretty simple task if anyone's interested.
Well, seeing as I'm the one that's yakking about muskrats all the time, I probably would,
Okay.
depending upon, seeing what it's all about.
I don't think there's really a time, we're not on a deadline. There's really no time constraint, so we can just set it up, and then whenever you have time, it's too hot to work outside, then sit inside and put dots on muskrat homes.
Start playing freestyle.
And then what we'll be able to do is if we, get a good baseline of where we believe the muskrat homes are, using, the imagery, we can look back in time, we can, then repeat this a couple of years down the road and see if the locations have changed, are there more, are there less. I'm not a muskrat expert, but I believe, sometimes just because we identify a house doesn't necessarily tell us how many rats are using that house, if any, even not all are using it. So it's not the best assessment of muskrat use. You really have to get out there, boots on the ground, find the rats, figure out which home they're using. That would be incredibly costly. So this is just an easy way for us to get some data on distribution and abundance.
Surveying the trappers as they come in would be something we could do just for pure numbers, see if they're tracking.
And then hit them with a public survey, with a survey too, or the questionnaire.
Could that be done, Alan?
Well,
Can anybody do that?
You can ask anybody anything. I don't know if they're going to tell you. I mean, the muskrat guys come here before. Invite him. Ask him.
Right. Because it's no different than, well, but the idea would be to get real numbers. Can't make them. The warden could.
I don't know if a warden could do that, because there's no bag limit or anything like that, so what are you gonna check him on, except that he's got a trapping license?
Well, absolutely, you can look through all these rats and make sure they're all rats, and not mink and beaver and everything else. When there's a will, there's way. It's a
We
thought.
usually don't do that unless we're going to do that. We don't still go up to somebody and say, we're going to look at all your stuff. But I think it would be better to talk to the people that trap out on the lake and have them cooperate with you.
Well, we know if we see them out there, if there's a lot of trappers, there's a lot of rats. But that's just a general statement.
There hasn't been, have you noticed any trapping in the last couple of years?
It's been...
Because we haven't.
Fur prices are
it's all
fur
way
prices
down.
are down.
Right.
Money pushes it.
Yep, and
But still, there's not
from
many
where we're
rats.
at.
I don't see. When was the last drought?
12.
I'd say the last 2 to 3 years, at least from where we're at. I'm not seeing anybody going out and putting the flags up and stuff.
Right.
And some of the neighbors down the road do that,
Right.
and they haven't.
Steve.
Yeah. Danny too.
That's right.
Yeah, and they have not.
I looked at a fur fish game yesterday or day before in Webster's. I check that every month to see what that is. And basically, this time around, usually they say, well, expect $4 or $5 or $3 or whatever it is. This time it said, well, the price can vary a lot based on rumors. It's always a good thing to maybe go and catch some muskrats to cover your expenses in that. So they don't even know themselves what it's going to be. But fur market in general is not that high.
Everybody wants full fur.
With the survey, for me, the really interesting thing about it is what Melissa was saying about comparing and contrasting. We were doing this trial water level regime at the higher end to supposedly benefit the muskrats. So if a comparison of the water of the rat house situation now versus before, is it about the same? Is it way better? Is it somewhere in between? It gives us a clue on the hydrology, which we need to look at closer in the grant next year, right?
Yeah, and we can even put different imagery, like we can go back in time, and 10 years ago we see some really good imagery where you can really see the rat houses. We can even have you do the same thing again with just a different imagery, and then we really could get a comparison. So there's a lot of, just depends on how much time and effort you want to put into a task like this, knowing that you got to take the data with a grain of salt.
How about this, after the meeting sometime, you, Melissa, and I just put our heads together on how we want to approach it, because maybe a section of the lake, we look at that as opposed to the whole thing, or whatever.
And we can maybe take a section of the lake and then we can put different imagery, and you can do that same thing over the course of, 10, 20 years, whatever imagery we feel is useful, and then that would give us a good comparison. It'll change over time.
Well, 20 years ago, you have much of nothing, because that's the time that we started this whole thing.
If you're possibly considering even going back 10 years to see what there was and then compared present, if it doesn't mess things up much, I would consider doing that part of it while he does the present. And if you need somebody, if you think that would really help and keep it more intact, I'll do that part of it.
I don't think we need to do the whole lake, so I do like the, comparing change over time with just a section of the lake, a representative section. So if you feel that, maybe it's a couple different sections of the lake, like the northern section, and then an area that has a little deeper water, and compare some of those areas over time.
I just know that when the trapping was good, like 3 years plus, right out where we are, and that whole section from where Danny is in it, and you just take it straight out and across, is where the guys would go and have a lot of swims out there. So that one whole section definitely was worked quite well.
Okay, so if we want to do that change over time approach, and I do like that approach, maybe you could at some point outline those areas on a map for me, and then we can have that area on our GIS layer so that when you guys go and put points, that boundary is already on there, and then you can just change the imagery behind it so you can see how it changes over time.
Okay. Anything else on the muskrat survey? Okay. We'll move on to the last item, GIS mapping, which is for water contribution and non-point loading. The billing that's showing there right now is just what Stantec's put in so far to pull useful maps, which help both muskrats and the GIS mapping that we have to do with the project. And that's one, too, where Melissa and I had a meeting with County Land and Water about a month ago about some work that may have already been done, which will help potentially check this one off without too much additional effort. So there's an opportunity there to have a savings on that line item, and potentially some of the tasks that we thought we maybe had to address next year. So more to come on that. So from a progress update, the final lines of this, the overall project is a cost of $43,444, cash cost of $30,931, and in-kind cost of $12,513. There's nothing that's telling me in any of these line items that we're going to blow through the cash costs, or we'd have a real overage anywhere there. The in-kind costs, if that were higher, that just means we did extra great at volunteering and donating time. So I don't know that the DNR would have any issue if our in-kind time contribution was more than the minimum we expected. Yeah, so from a progress update, that breaks it all out. Does anybody have any other further questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to invasive Phragmites, which isn't in this, but there's an opportunity to address. Okay, so we'll move on to that. Invasive Phragmites is the topic, but this picture is just Phragmites. So there's two kinds that are in our watershed. There's non-native and invasive Phragmites. If you just take a glance at this and pass it down, Doug, there's the non-native kind that isn't good, and there's the native kind which isn't a big deal. It's native and non-invasive. Those pink dots are all Phragmites stands of varying sizes and shapes, which I have identified over the past 9 months or so. They look small when you put them there, but when you go driving around and you look at some of these, there's a lot of it. I've had interactions with DNR on the topic, and I've had some interactions with County Land and Water on the topic as well. So holistically as a project, Phragmites can be a problem, and it's something we should look to do something about. And that became very clear to me last year when I was speaking with representatives of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who commented that your problem at Rush Lake is cattail? Oh, well, at least it's not Phragmites. So the thing with Phragmites is if we have invasive stands of it, best to identify it when it's not a big problem, eradicate it, and have it not be an issue. We don't have a project budget for it in this grant, but Melissa and I in our meeting with County did talk to them about an opportunity where they could collect some imagery for us at almost no cost. That would be nice, but there isn't really a budget for analysis of the imagery, which is kind of problematic. You can have your cake, but you can't eat it too, basically. So an individual that Ted Johnson identified as a potential contact earlier with DNR is Brock Woods. He's a statewide wetland invasives guy. And his team have identified they've already done some work with Phragmites in our watershed. They've provided me some maps previously that have stands identified, but there aren't nearly as many as what I have here. But what my conversation with Brock Woods entailed was he has a small grants program, which may be up our alley. He identified that awards that are less than $5,000 are very attainable for organizations such as ours. And that sounded like an appealing opportunity where we could get an additional grant to do work that we didn't think we had a budget for this year. It doesn't require any additional match, is the way I understand, which means we don't have to pony up $2,000 of our own money to get the $5,000. We just get it if the project has the merits they're looking for, which made it sound very appealing to me. So with that, I'd like to throw it over to you, Melissa, for comments on what I just mentioned here, just to get it from somebody who does this stuff professionally.
Yeah, so it's, as you guys know, this is a challenging lake to get out there and survey. I do suspect that if non-native Phragmites is present on the lake, and in fact there is an orange polygon on the map on the kind of southeastern shore that Brett and I observed when we were in a boat, and I'm fairly confident that is a non-native patch of Phragmites in amongst native Phragmites. It's difficult to tell the difference between the two of them. I see a lot of Phragmites, so I could pick that one out pretty quickly. But the native Phragmites does senesce, it dies back earlier than the non-native Phragmites. So there's a couple week, 2, maybe 3 week window where you can really easily see the difference between the two of them when you scan a horizon, because one will be really bright green and still pretty vivid, the other one will be kind of dead and dying back. So that would potentially be a really good time to get out and fly a drone and collect very good imagery, potentially, transects across the lake, or maybe we select a very specific area of the lake where we believe there is native and non-native, and we test it with the drone flyover to see if in fact we really can see the difference from a drone. So we discussed submitting this grant that would allow the county to support this effort. We would, they would get the drone in the air, they would fly a certain area, they would do some georeferencing of the imagery and rectify it so that we could take that imagery and just put it into our GIS system and be able to see that imagery on our maps, and then we'll be able to draw polygons around the Phragmites patches that we believe are non-native. We would have to fly it probably mid to late September, which sometimes you can get some pretty unfavorable weather that time of year. So as a backup, we would just get in an aquatic vehicle and we would just drive around and identify and look at every frag stand we can with the amount of money that's available. So Brett and I discussed writing the grant to the DNR, proposing to get out there and survey Phragmites using a bunch of different techniques, which will have to just be adjusted on the spot, pending weather, staff availability. One way or another, we will get out there. I don't think we're going to be able to survey the whole lake for $5,000, but we will certainly get out there and survey as much as we can. And that'll be sometime this fall.
Do you need a motion for directing to get a grant, to apply for the grant? Do you want a motion for that?
I don't think I do. I just want to read a little bit from the letter that Brock Woods sent me on it, and then I just want to ask one other question before we go any further. So he sent me this. This is a letter that he sent out to, they're called CISMAs, which just means Citizen Invasive Species Management Associations, which just means organizations like ours, right? But also governments can apply for it like county. Anyways, it says, letters and invitation to your organization to consider how one-time infusion of typically less than $5,000 from our GLRI grants could help it be more effective in battling aquatic invasive species. Their invasive species team will evaluate the proposal and perhaps ask for more detail and award that the best proposals are received with no required match. Projects under $5,000 receive priority. Many grants involve applications that often take more time than they should, so we want to keep the process for these small monetary awards simple, so we encourage your participation. An easy application process is especially important since these awards are quite small, which sounds really straightforward to me.
And I've gotten several of them, and typically my scope has been 2 pages or less, so you just really kind of outline it. if he's got questions, you just get on the phone and talk through stuff. They do make it pretty easy.
Ellen, do you have a feel on this program or any remarks to share with the broader organization? No? Okay.
It's not mine.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's general support for it, I'd work with Melissa to just get the application drafted. The rub with it is the environmental variables, because perhaps, first, what Melissa said about the drone and one plant browns up before the other one does, Brock Woods, the invasive species guy, said, yeah, that's true, it does. And to have a drone flyover like that, where you actually catalog that was really exciting to him to have that be a project. So that the stars are lining up on that. People are saying the same things. So I would propose that Melissa and I would work to put that application together. And at present, we have 3 potential partners in the queue that we could use for it. One, County Land and Water, who says, we'll fly a drone for free, but we can't really do any interpretation for you because that would cost money. They could do it. Jim Sharl with Wisconsin Lake and Pond, they put a to-be-determined cost factor on if they did a drone flyover and what that would look like. I could ask them for a quote on it, too. And third, Stantec, they've got a drone in their equipment list, and I assume that you guys could get it to fly, assuming whatnot?
Yeah, so our capabilities would probably be very similar to Jim's. I would have some additional questions for the county on what their capability and their time commitment to geo-rectify that imagery. So when we just fly a drone, it's like a video. The county may have other abilities to be able to take that imagery and put it into something that's a little more user-friendly for our purposes.
I've got a question. Can anybody like today walk up to a stand of Phragmites and say, this is definitely one or the other?
Absolutely. But in a place like Rush Lake where they're intermixed and you've got thousands of acres and it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Okay, so they do intermix.
They do intermix, and I suspect that if we were to find non-native Phragmites, it's going to be on the outside perimeter. It's probably going to be in ditched areas where they've been ditched. Where we found it, it was kind of on the edge. I would hate to find a way out in the middle because I wonder how it got there, but certainly boats are moving around, fragments are
now
on
I've seen
people's
stands
motors.
of Phragmites, on the way home up towards Eureka, and it's in the ditch, it's a solid growth, okay? Now on my property, I've been working with some that is scattered where there's a shoot here and 10 feet over and 5 feet over. It's a mixture. I'm almost thinking that's more likely the native.
Yeah.
But these solid, thick stands are the ones that are just an automatic kind of a catch.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways to tell the difference. And sometimes
I've been online and trying to sort it out. Yeah.
So there's a subtle difference in the color of the leaf. There's a subtle difference in the size of the leaf, and the size of the plant in general. So the non-native is going to be bigger. It's going to grow more dense. It's going to be more of a blue-green color, and it's going to have bigger leaves. The native is going to play friendlier with other plants, so you'll find just a few scattered stems. It's going to have a reddish stem. Sometimes it's a little kind of reddish brown.
Okay.
And it's
That's
the
native one.
That's the native, and it's going to be a little more of a lime green color.
Okay.
I see so much frag that I can tell the difference right away in the color, but if you don't have them next to each other,
you want to learn.
And then of course there's differences in the seed heads and how the leaf is attached to the stem in the winter, and if there's red dots or ridges. So there are ways to tell them apart if you've got the experience.
Now, we've been talking about, or what you've been talking about, is identifying the pots, where this is.
Yeah.
Then another year, then how do you attack that?
So then you would get a vehicle out there and you would do an herbicide treatment on just the non-native.
But if it's in areas where the cattails are so thick you can't get to them, is that helicopter?
No, so that would not be my recommendation. You get an aquatic vehicle out there. So something that can, we've got that. We've got the equipment to be able to get out to practically anywhere in Rush Lake with a track vehicle.
So basically you do spot spraying.
Yeah, you would do spot spraying. Yeah. And so in Rush Lake, you'd have to almost walk up to almost every single frag and say, is this native or not? Yeah. You just can't do that at that scale.
So if you got a stand where you have a mixture, would the idea then be just to go and do a spray the whole area and then?
There potentially would be some collateral damage if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really mixed with the natives and cattail. Yeah, you would. I don't know that it'd be. We try not to kill native frag, but let's hope it's not. Well, there's not too much of that out there. I'm hoping it's not. There's not a lot out there.
What is the chemical of choice? Do you know offhand?
Yep, we use a variety of different chemicals. The DNR I know uses Habitat a lot. We stop it. So the Habitat is the trade name. The active ingredient is imazapyr. And DNR uses that. DNR recommends that. We stopped using that a long time, about 3 years ago, because it has a really long residual lifetime in the soil. I don't like how the sites look after treatment, so we use mostly just glyphosate products. So their aquatic approved glyphosate trade names would be Aquaneat or Roundup Custom. And then there's the Juvians you mix with it and dye and other stuff.
Now, if you've had a patch of this that's been there for 4, 5, 10 years, whatever, those seeds are in the mud.
Yeah.
You spray and you kill this year's growth, but isn't that seed bed there and it'll pop them back up again?
Phragmites isn't known to, at least the non-native isn't known to spread too readily by seed. It's mostly the underground roots or the above ground roots that spread, and so that's why you see these really, really dense patches that just keep getting bigger and bigger every year. Mm-hmm. So seed has it, I'm sure it does spread by seed, but it hasn't known to be very viable seed.
The Phragmite now would be leafed out, it'd be green, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Highway 45, it's just north of Fond du Lac, it was along the lake. There's an area there that along the ditches was real heavy. It's been there ever since I can remember. They must have sprayed it this year because it is dead this year.
Yeah. They've been spraying. I think the DNR's had contracts to do a lot in Winnebago County and then some in Fond du Lac and potentially County Met.
I have to ask this. It doesn't spread by seed. How does it get to another area?
That's an excellent idea. Excellent question. So every time I talk to a landowner that has a Phragmites patch somewhere in the middle of their hardwood swamp, I always say, when is the first time you saw it there and how do you think it got there? So if people are like bringing equipment into places, so that's why I fear with this lake, if they have fragments on like their motors or something or attached to their trailers, it could get way up in certain places, but oftentimes it's spread through mowing activities on the road right-of-way, so road corridors are big vectors. If county or townships are replacing culverts and they're getting, so in Manitowoc County where I do a lot of Phragmites control, some of the quarries are just filled with Phragmites, and so if they're getting, rock or something to replace culverts, it shows up there. Yeah, a lot of times people in Manitowoc County have ponds that they've dug, and I would say 90% of the ponds in Manitowoc County have Phragmites along the perimeter, so it came in on the equipment. So it's moved really, the roots structure is moved mechanically by mowing equipment, earth moving equipment, so boats potentially at this lake.
So birds, chance of birds?
I don't think so, because when you see it newly infesting, like for example a pond or something, you see it along the edge, you don't see it in the middle and expanding out. So you would think if it was a duck flying in, you would see it along the kind of high water areas, you wouldn't see it on the outside. So it makes me think it's equipment. So farm fields, if a farmer's farming right up to a wetland, you'll see it along the edge of the farm field in the wetland. So it's moving by the equipment, we suspect.
First time I saw that was 60 years ago. And it was there was a railroad tracks that went from Rickham to Winnie County. And just outside of Waukau, my sister owned some land there. And all of a sudden this was growing, and it was just, what is that? But I figured that must have came in on a rail car.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's moving this way at an alarming rate, so certainly, it's coming down from the bay, and it's also coming westward. So I'm seeing it more and more now in Winnebago, Green Lake County, more so than I ever have.
Brett, I actually do think we should put it in a motion, because that way you're covered as far as everything is. So I'm going to make a motion that you pursue that grant.
That's second. Okay. Kurt made a motion Bruce second that I pursue the grant. Any further discussion? I have just one point with it. Just due to the timelines that everything's on, we could say, well, we have county queued up to help us out do this stuff, but they say, well, Andy Marasini's flying his drone over here and he can't get there today. So the way I would look to approach it is get a cost expectation from the three potential parties that we have: county, Wisconsin Lake and Pond, Stanpec. Say, so I've got three parties with three different drones who can fly at the given time. And then based on who can do it on the timeline we need, which we might not know until the day it happens, who can deliver a work product in line with that's consistent with our overall grant and our plant surveying that we're doing, and who can do it within the budget. That's the criteria I use to select who flies on that day, just to throw that out there.
It's your discretion. You trust me.
Okay. So any further discussion? Okay. So motion made and seconded that I pursue this grant. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion carries unanimously. Melissa, you and I, let's connect to get this application in as quickly as we can, so we can hopefully get a determination as quickly as we can.
He'll turn it around pretty quick.
Yep.
He may say they look at it, but it's really kind of first come, first served.
It sounded like there was extra money laying around from when I talked to Brock, so. Okay. Okay. Nothing further on that. We'll move on to the next item on the Lake Management Planning section, past outreach activities. These will go much snappier than the two that we've progressed through so far. Before tonight's meeting, I did circulate to the directors a Brat Fry financial summary. There's a lot of numbers on the page to break it out every which way you might care about, but the moral of the story is Brat Fry went out great. The weather cooperated, which was a miracle because it was pouring before and after the Brat Fry, but it was fine in between. We had an info table. Dwayne at Webster's let us set it up in the entrance in case we did get rained on. And we had info at the condiment table. All Brat Fry members were talking to people who were there about our project, which was really great. Food and beverage profit of $441.53, and we received donations of $126.83. Food and beverage profit was very comparable to the prior years, within $60 of last year and $30 of the year before. Both those prior 2 years were Saturdays in July. Just for reference, our first Brat Fry was in 2016, and on a Sunday in late August only earned about $225 in profit on the Brat Fry, so almost twice as good to change it up to a Saturday in July. And overall, if you say, okay, what about revenue? The revenue from people actually buying Brat's burgers, soda, whatnot, was $674 versus $782 and $688 in the prior 2 years. So down a hair, but not bad. Anybody have any questions on the Brat Fry Outreach Event? I think it was a great event. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you for all of our volunteers from the board who were there, and also Dewey, thank you for coming out and helping us that day to put on a really good one. Okay, then I'll move on to the next outreach event that we conducted. It was the Vines and Rushes Cause of the Mondays event. It was great to be featured there again. We had an info table, and we helped serve food and beverages throughout dinner service. Table and counter donations received of 128 were slightly higher than last year. The contribution from the 25% contribution from food sales is not yet known or received, and I'm awaiting word from Vines and Rushes on that, so that'll be a lingering contribution. Does anybody have any questions about Vines and Rushes outreach event? Got, for reference, the brochure A, which was done without any project money, is on the left. That was what was handed out. The not nice looking one, that was at the Brat Fry. The fancier looking one on the right was the brochure that we handed out at the Vines and Rushes event. And we've got close to 400 more for other events this summer. Ducks Unlimited, one of their co-chairs agreed to allow me to set up the info table at their August 3rd dinner at the log cabin here, in which I'll be promoting our open house, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then also the other brochures will go towards the open house. So we've got a little bit of inventory there, but not much. Okay, if no further questions or comments, we'll go on to upcoming outreach, the open house. That was one of the areas that we created a work group for, which consists of myself and Melissa, Chuck Kurt, Nancy Gleisner, and Mike Hayes from County Land and Water. We had a open house work group meeting on July 9th, Saturday, September 7th, at the Nepeuskun Town Hall. That's the Saturday after Labor Day, is the date for our open house. There will be an open house in this room here, and we'll also be conducting a driving tour at the same time, where there'll just be a number of spots around the lake that people can visit to observe Rush Lake and some of the challenges and opportunities that we have. The open house work group decided on conducting the event with official hours of 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon to try and get as good attendance and participation as possible. We have yet to put specifics in regard to the content of the in this room part of the event, but we'll be meeting again to do that soon and also develop the content for the driving tour. One item that we talked about was it's customary for light refreshments to be served at events like this, things like bars, cookies, beverages like water, coffee, cheese, sausage, crackers, fruit, or vegetables, so nothing heavy. The open house work group agreed that we'd be looking to seek donations from local businesses to provide those items. Should those items not be provided in sufficient quantity, the open house work group agreed that we would support Rush Lake Watershed, spending money on that. The only challenge with that is the money can't be included in the grant as match, because food included in the program is not a matchable expense. So it's entirely on our dime and it's outside of the project. But because it's an important item to help make people feel relaxed and wanting to participate, we view it as important to do. The open house work group suggested proposing spending money on those items for the whatever we need to make up the shortfall. And if we allot a set amount of money now, we certainly don't have to spend that amount of money. We just agreed that we would look to set a not to exceed number so we have a budget to work with if we don't find parties to donate those items or money for those items. Does anybody have any questions about the open house, its overall format itself? Before we go on any other items with the open house. So questions about holding kind of an open house in this room, kind of like how we had open houses in the past and in building one, but also one where people can drive around the lake and maybe stop at the East Landing and see, wow, that's a lot of cattail, and stop at other places too and take it in.
What was the date again?
Saturday, September 7th.
Would this be like a situation where, like you said, you could have people posted at these different spots and give a little interpretation or question and answer on site? You're just manning, like, 4 or 5 points on the lake?
Maybe not even that many.
I was just going to say we get a scenic overview, a Kodak moment area up on by the log cabin or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but yeah, something along that line. Okay, so they can actually step into it. Okay.
Yeah. The work group didn't have any specifics fleshed out for those spots or how they can best perform with whether they have someone there or whether you just have a laminated sheet of paper that says, look at this and here's what it used to look like or something like that. Those are all things that are to be determined with Chuck, Nancy, me, Melissa, and Mike Hayes. And those are all things that we would bring to the full steering committee in the middle of August when we meet next. and then the event would happen in September. So we don't really need anything extra from the board on it, other than as we develop content, we'll probably be calling around to see if anybody can assist, depending on what the needs might be. And if we wanted to make any sort of motion tonight to offer a amount of money to not to exceed the spend on it.
What do you guys come up with a number though as you were kicking this around? You got an idea you could recommend?
Nancy, do you want to take that one?
I think we discussed, we were talking about the 500 we were looking at.
That was the number.
Mm-hmm.
That's what came to my mind.
Yeah, and I had that in my mind too, and then we were talking, and Melissa threw it on, I said, bingo, kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that we would spend all of that, and if we don't, then it's just off to the side, but, I don't see that we would really exceed it, but I think that's a fair reach,
Well, I move, we allocate up to, but not exceeding $500 for supplies, food, beverage supplies for the upcoming open house September 7th.
I second it.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded to allocate up to and not exceed $500 for supplies, food, beverages for the upcoming open house on September 7th. Any further debate, topic? Further discussion? I just have one small point. The 500 would fall outside of the grant parameters. For example, to pull it back to the financial project overview, this education and outreach line of $4,400, that would include money for printing materials that could go at stations or in the room. The $500 doesn't have anything to do with that.
I understand.
Okay, just making sure that that's clear. Okay. Any further debate or discussion? I'll call the motion. Motion made and seconded to allocate up to but not exceed $500 for supplies, food, and beverages for the open house to be conducted on September 7th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next topic, if we're through on the open house for today, at this time, we'll go to another upcoming outreach item, the survey work group, the public survey, which should be more appropriately called an opinion Opinionaire. Yes, thank you. So Melissa mentioned some of this before, so I won't beat it at a horse, but technically speaking, the terminology is important because a survey is something that is a controlled questioning of a population, and when you get enough of that population to respond, say more than 60%, you can say, because we have these answers and we have a statistically significant survey, we could say that everybody wants the results of this survey. But we were never going to get there for a couple reasons, like how do you survey Rush Lake? Do you send it just to property owners that are in the watershed? Well, a heck of a lot of people who use it might not live here. They might live in Ripon and they don't count for that population or somewhere else entirely. Even if we did choose to take a small population like that, just property owners that are in the watershed, what Jordan shared is that the cost to conduct a survey properly would be north of $10,000. Our budget's nowhere near that. So Jordan and Ted, after Ted Johnson, who's on the steering committee, and on the work group for this, agreed that an Opinionaire is the way to go, which is great. So the work group is meeting this coming week to begin identifying and prioritizing questions. Once that's done, those will get relayed back to Jordan with DNR. He'll provide his remarks and then we'll repeat the process. The overall timing of the Opinionaire is to be determined, but given today's date, I'd just make a wild guess that since it's July 18th, we've got a bunch of work to do. My guess is we don't launch the Opinionaire until our open house on September 7th, and we keep it open until sometime in duck season, maybe October sometime, maybe November, I don't know. When we did it back in 2001, we provided the Opinionaire at the open house in April, and we kept it open until June 1st, at least per documents that I reviewed that were in the file folders that Ron got me from the basement here at the town hall. So the overall timeline, if we launched it at the open house, it's pretty close to what we did in 2001. And that's about all I had for prepared remark on the Opinionaire. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on that topic? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, Phase 2 development. That would indicate the Phase 2 of our grant. Adaptive Management Work Group, which is the third work group that was set up by the steering committee. Melissa, would you just give us a high level on your thoughts on this work group, its goals, and how it plays into the 2020 Lake Management Planning Grant application?
Sure. So the intent of the work group is really to come up with management recommendations that we can bring back to the full steering committee. But then, of course, we'll get back to the full board on recommendations on how we move forward with managing cattail on the lake. So the intent was to get all the key players together. I've been coordinating with Fish and Wildlife Service out of the Horicon Wildlife Refuge, and the intent is to get everyone together to meet there, to talk with the Horicon folks, maybe to get the Mead Wildlife folks to come over and talk with them, get a much better consensus on how they're managing cattail, what are some of their success stories, their lessons learned. I think Rush Lake is really unique. At Horicon, they do have the capability to manipulate water level where they can flood and take water off, whereas this is a pretty unique situation. So the term adaptive work group is pretty key because we really are going to have to come up with a bunch of recommendations, and then those recommendations will have to be adjusted on the spot pending weather conditions. So, and it's really going to be informed by all of the professional guidance of the people that are there. So people like myself, Ducks Unlimited, Wisconsin Wetlands Association, these are all people that have had extensive experience, Fish and Wildlife Service. We're trying to get some DNR folks there too. So there are DNR people that manage cattail at Horicon too. So we're going to all put our heads together and we'll come up with a consensus on what we recommend for the lake. And then we'll take that and present it to you guys and get a consensus, and then we'll move forward with trying to secure some grant funds to actually do implementation on the ground. And I suspect it'll include water level manipulations, burning, and chemical control, and varying combinations and time frames, each of those.
You talked about the control aspects, Melissa, but that advises what work gets developed for the 2020 Lake Management Plan to dot our I's and crosses our T's for the full plan, right?
Yeah. And we're looking to set up a meeting with everybody as soon as we can. I ideally would like to have our first meeting before we have our open house. The person at Fish and Wildlife Service is leaving for 2.5 weeks in August, so I did send out an email and wanted to verify when the meeting spaces were available. So as soon as we can figure out when is a good time to meet there, then we'll try and schedule the meeting and have it, and hopefully it'll happen before early September. But if not, I don't see that it's a huge rush, but we definitely need to meet and get those discussions going.
Any questions or comments from Melissa? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next and final item of the lake management planning section of our meeting, compliance and reporting. So I mentioned it before, so I won't belabor the point, but I've got 2 binders to support everything that's being done on my desk. One of them is a grant binder, so if it has anything to do with any financial reporting or compliance with the grant, this binder has the support in it, including the forms that I submit to Chrissy Kozik at the DNR. So I'm maintaining this. If anything, this includes things that both are money and things that are donations of time, like the Brat Fry and whatnot. So it's all here, whether it actually required cash or just donated time. If it's something that hits the checkbook, it absolutely is making it into this other binder. So something might be in both of these. I've got a copy in here. The documents that are in both of these are scanned and I have electronic and I'm doing backups on it. So all this stuff it's here, there, and everywhere. So if anybody wants anything, just let me know and I can get it to you. And if something happens to me, I get run over by a truck, remember this moment, because here's the stuff.
And where do you keep said stuff?
I could
Ask his wife.
probably help you with that.
I don't need to know. I just, if you got run over, how would they know where to find it?
Oh, my better half does. And it's in these fabulous binders. You'll see it they're at the top of my Rush Lake junk pile at home. And if the house burns down, I've got a zip disk that has everything in a fireproof safe. So it's there. Okay. So anyways, compliance reporting, there's been no surprises. It's just busy work. No big deal. Okay. Nothing further on that. We'll move on to the next section of our meeting, other matters. Ron, I got just a quick water level management update as the first item there. Would you mind talking a little bit about what the lake's been doing, at least per the dam?
Well, I'll go back to roughly after our April meeting. The water level at that time was right around 1.5. We had a very large accumulation of bogs, both at the diverter, but more so right in front of the dam gates. It actually was a record when we had Winnebago County come out to clean those out. They wouldn't all fit in one dump truck. And so there were even a couple of them that were left on shore. Anyway, we got that done. And so then we moved to late April. Water level again at 1.4, right on target. Early May 11th, the water level was 1.3. At that time, I began to close 2 of the 6 gates. So 2 gates were closed at that time. Moving on to May 20th, I closed 1 additional gate because the water level was at 1.3. May 29th, the water level was up to 1.6. I didn't do anything with the gates because we had just had about 1.5 inches of rain within the past 48 hours, and the forecast was relatively dry. Moving to June 20th, the water level was 1.45. I left all the gates the same. On July 1st, it was 1.4. And on July 12th, it was 1.5. And again, the gates all remaining the same, with gates 1, 2, and 4 at the water level of roughly 1.4, and gates 3, 4, and 5 are still at full top draw. So, that's it.
Sounds good.
Questions?
What's full top draw?
When you have the gates lowered from the top down as far as they'll go, which was about 20 inches, I would say. Do not bottom draw. That is for if you wanted to drain the lake again. The gates do go down a lot further by cranking them up in an accordion fashion, and eventually they open from the bottom. The trouble with doing bottom draw is when you want to get that to seal off and not leak real bad. So, in my opinion, I don't think we'll ever bottom draw until we want to drain the lake again. And I don't feel that bottom drawing really has much advantage as far as the amount of water that you can get through the gates than a full top draw.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on water? Then we'll move on to talking about the Waukau Dam, Winnebago County Parks Collaboration. Doug, did you talk about that a little bit? We left at the last meeting with to do with talking to Rob Way at Winnebago County Parks on what they might be able to do to prevent washout there.
I contacted Rob Way. We're meeting out there, hopefully Bruce and I and Rob there, to take a look. The dam blew out again down there this spring in a couple different places, and Rob is all in favor of doing something to prevent that in the future. It's felt that maybe by increasing the size of the bypass, that would cost some money. But he's willing to work with us. He would have to be working directly with the DNR, which I think he will be doing. There will be have to be excavation going from the main channel of the creek that goes over the dam, that bypasses over to the bypass, and that is filled in through the years. Plus the bypass was never designed quite large enough to handle the excess water like we had this spring. So hopefully something will be done there. Like he mentioned, we got to do something that's foolish every 3 or 4 years to rebuild what nature's blowing out. That whole project, when it was done back in, I believe, in the 60s, it was just never designed correctly. But with a little bit of tweaking, I think the problem will be solved there, I believe. So that's all I can tell you right at this time.
Our meeting will be next week, during the week with Rob.
With Rob, yeah. So we'll talk with him, we'll give him our 2 cents worth and see where it goes from there.
Okay, for what it's worth, in the prior meeting I talked about working with Melissa on if there was a grant opportunity. Melissa said talk to Ted and see what the options were. Ted shared that there can be money available for physical improvements like that to the dam, but the engineering work would have to be done beforehand to demonstrate this is what we're looking to do. So if Rob has an idea, well, I could expand it, but I don't have money in my budget to enhance the dam this way, there might be money available through a program that Ted could help get us plugged into. So if he's cautious.
Well, I think to start with here, let's see what the parks can come up with, and if there's anything from the DNR. And then, if that doesn't work, then we can take that route. Or we can throw it into him.
Well, Ted is the DNR.
Well, I understand that, but is he responsible for that part of the project? He would be. I don't know.
Ellen, do you know how Ted...
Ted would know who it is.
Ted would know? Okay.
I don't know that.
All right.
Okay. Well, thanks, Doug and Bruce, for running that down with Rob and keeping that moving. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Doug or Bruce on the subject? No? Okay. Move on to the Rush Lake Dam Enhancement with cost estimates. That was the topic that we talked about in April with putting some extra sheets into the dam. There are 2 takeaways. One, Doug was going to run down some cost estimates, but 2, getting a blessing from Ducks Unlimited who designed the dam. They sent a confirmation across this week that said there's no issue with doing the additional gates at the dam, and we're supportive of it. So that's positive. Doug, what'd you get from your...
Originally, there's 6 gates altogether. Originally, we did 2 gates to see if it was working, and it did work. There's 4 gates left, which involves 8 sheets of steel. The sheets have to be 4 by 6, 4 feet by 6 feet. They do weigh about 182 pounds, so it's a little bit of a wrestle to get them into position and drill some holes in those plates and then attach them to the pilings that are there. I got cost estimates, and 2 of them from Oshkosh. One was Elrow Steel, 8 sheets, 4 by 6, 3/16 inches thick. The quote was $990. And he was being aggressive to try to get me to sign up on it right away. I called Lapham Hickey Steel Company. Elrow, by the way, is one that's building that huge plant building on 41 there by the EAA. Lapham Hickey Steel, which is right in Oshkosh on Highway K, I got a bid from them, same 8 sheets, 4 by 6, 3/6 inches thick. Their bid was $1,825, pretty much double what the other one was. So I questioned a little bit, maybe the first guy was incorrect. I called him back. And I says, this is what you quoted me, is this correct? And he agreed it was correct. So anyways, if we were to buy the steel today, it would be $990 for the 6 sheets, 8 sheets. So anyways, there would be an additional cost of some threaded rod and some bolts. Throw another $100 in there, I suppose. The real trick to it is getting somebody with strong backs to move those sheets in. I and Bruce and a couple other guys did the first 2, but I'm beyond that. So anyways, it doesn't take long. It would probably burn up the better part of a morning or an afternoon to attach them. So that's where that's standing right now.
Thank you, Doug. We'll open up the discussion of the board. Thoughts? Ron?
We just haven't had many carp at the dam now for, I believe it's been at least 3 years. It seems like if Waukau works, and even like this year, Waukau got washed out, but by the time, I don't know, Doug, did we have as many carp come to Waukau this year as we usually do?
We actually, Ron, what happened, we got lucky there. Where it blew out by the bypass, it was early.
Right.
And it was cold, and the carp weren't up yet.
Right.
By the time the carp got there, and there was a lot of them there, the water had dropped enough where there wasn't enough.
Basically working then.
It was working then. There wasn't, the blowout wasn't severe enough to let them up. So these sheets basically are the fail-safe.
Okay.
And the real fail-safe is a simple solution if you can catch it at the right time, and that was take a roll of snow fence and throw it over the dam like we had done many years ago. But the only bad part about that is somebody has to be there at that time. Mm-hmm. Carp are just like sheep. Once they find a hole, they all follow each other right through it. And I think it'd be a good investment. True, if Waukau can be redesigned so they can't get up, good. But if they do that and it doesn't work, again, back to square one, then you have to be that considerate of the carp getting up there again. So I think it's an insurance policy, basically. It'll last forever where the sheets are. I do know if the carp are there, and I do know if the water was at our level, 4 or 5, whatever would be, I'll guarantee you those carp would get in there, because I saw it. I watched them for hours. But that simple fix of having that side sheet on there prevents them from making that leap. So we could wait and see what happens with the dam at Waukau to see if they can redesign that to make it work. And if not, then buy sheets and put them in there. I guess my vote would be to do it now, or we'd have to wait till the water went down.
Yeah.
It can't be done when the water's coming through like it is now.
Does Waukau have it on their schedule when they're looking to do this?
When they're going to do this? No, we're in the talking stage right now. The first step was talking to Mr. Wade from the Winnebago County Parks and the DNR, and seeing if they can come up with a viable solution.
So then as we wait for them to make up their minds.
Ear opened a little bit, if they put it on their agenda and it's 5 years down the road, then I'm sure that would be a good investment. It's not the end of the world, but I think it would make a lot of sense to do it. I don't think we're throwing our money away.
Art?
You know, bottom line is I remember you with your set of waders on dragging that net for the better part of a day down in freezing water and all the rest of that
Can't do that anymore neither.
Well, my point is that was a lot of effort back then.
Yeah.
And if you do this now, there's a better chance that you'll never have to do that again.
Correct.
The other part.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we should go and do it.
Parks are going to for sure do something because they're, like Rob says, we're really stupid just every 3 or 4 years rebuilding this thing. So we'll see where it goes.
Doug, I didn't catch, did those prices include shipping?
I would pick them up there. It's right out of Oshkosh. Yeah. Like I say, the biggest challenge of it is to, on the first two, when we put those gates in, I was in a hurry. Instead of drilling nice neat holes in the sheets, I just took a torch and cut a hole and then did the same thing. If I remember right, we did put a stabilizer bar from one sheet on one, like gate 1 to gate 2, a threaded rod to stabilize that. I think we did that too at the same time, but I'd have to look at it again now. I'm not even 100% sure on the 3/16, but I think that's what it was. I got to measure that to make sure on that. I know it isn't thicker than that, but I don't think it was thinner.
Whatever it is, it's holding out.
Yeah, actually, it'd be impossible for that dam to ever fail the way it's built. I always thought it was overbuilt, but it'll be here 1,000 years from now.
Better safe than sorry.
Better safe than sorry.
Right.
Art?
I'm going to make another motion that we allocate up to $1,200 to purchase steel and miscellaneous hardware to install the extra steel on the 4 gates that need to have it done at the Rush Lake Dam.
Second.
Okay. Art made the motion, Bob will go to second, to allocate up to $1,200 for steel and miscellaneous hardware to install additional carp protection gates in the 4 unprotected bays.
Right. Sounds good.
Any further discussion or debate?
I think it's a good idea, provided it isn't going to affect how you operate the gate. It's kind of, why not do it then? And if Lapham Hickey is that much now, these guys might be that much next year.
Well, that's the thing we don't know. Yeah. We'd have to, if the price raised drastically, we'd have to reconsider it.
Right.
You know?
So, I mean, I think that's a decent enough price.
Is that something we can lock in sooner than later?
Well, you can buy them right now and set them aside.
Just in case.
You know, that you can, yeah.
Just in case.
I was just amazed that there was that much difference between the two quotes. It was double.
One's Jap steel and the other one's United States steel.
Some steel. Right. There's some yards that have extra stuff right now. How do I get rid of it?
Elrow Steel is down on South Main on 10th. They're the ones that are building that huge building out on 41 at the EAA. It's like 90,000 square feet.
Oh, jeez.
Huge building. That's going to be their headquarters now.
Now, if figuring this motion gets approved, when would you think you'd be able to acquire the steel?
In a week or two.
Would you store it by you then?
Yeah, I can store it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other debate or discussion? Okay, then I'll call the motion. Motion made and seconded to allocate up to $1,200 for steel and miscellaneous hardware to install carp gates in the 4 unprotected bays. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Doug, let me just keep you in the loop afterwards. I can come along and cut checks and help get stuff taken care of. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. No further discussion on the Rush Lake Dam Enhancement. I have one item. Once we have them, Ron, I'd like to circle back with you just to try and find a time that makes sense to install them at the dam, because we need low water. What that means, I'll look to connect with the both of you, and then I'd look to work to find, I'm happy to put on the waders and get in the drink and do it, but finding some other guys who want to get in the drink with me to do that stuff too. So, and you guys can supervise and tell us.
How long would you estimate that it would take if everything went perfect?
I don't know. You'd have to figure a day. It would burn up a day, probably.
Would you just raise the gates so you didn't have water coming in?
That's a possibility. Yeah, that'd be a possibility. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. When we did it, the water was real low, and it was basically just trickle coming over the top at that time. That's a few years ago now, but I can't even remember how long.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Move on to next item. The next is something that we tabled at a prior meeting. Before the meeting, I circulated to the directors the first page of our bylaws, which specifically is Article 2, membership, or the members section. That's not the people sitting at this table here. These are additional members. That was something that at our prior meeting we talked about, an opportunity that if we had a membership function, we could charge a membership fee, and there could be certain benefits to said members. Don't really have a real agenda for it other than if we want to discuss it at any length or table it to another meeting. It certainly would create another administrative function, so for me, the way I look at it is there value in pursuing it at this time, and what do we have to do to achieve that value? With the grant going on, we've got opportunities for outreach to say, hey, do you want to be a member with Rush Lake Watershed? But there will be other opportunities down the line too, so I don't know that it needs to be a priority. What does everyone else think for the purpose of the discussion tonight?
I say let it rest. It's not a priority, and then you can gauge in the future the amount of public interest and what you want to do with it then. If we don't generate numbers, then you've got nothing to work with. So we're in the infancy stage of all of this right now. Let's just move forward with the groundwork.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That sounds like a good idea, really.
Right. If nothing further, we'll table it for now and shelve it to a later date, which doesn't mean our fall meeting. It'll be when we feel like talking about it again. Okay. Moving on. This next one, brainstorming additional fundraising opportunities. This was an item that we tabled at the last meeting also. We could approach it the same way as membership or take a more active stance on it. Just a quick comment before anybody gets too far into the subject. Going back to the treasurer's report and our balance sheet having $28,299 in total cash on it right now, and receivables of $10,750. That's we're in a good place from a money in the bank and money that should be showing up standpoint. But it's not going to stay that way for long. The 9684 of regular cash that's in our general treasury is going to be needed to be used to pay for cash aspects of our grant that we're doing this year, our 2019 grant, until we get fully reimbursed from the DNR for the remaining 25%, which in all likelihood won't be until the first quarter of next year. So just assume that in the fourth quarter of this year, that 9684 is going to go down by over $6,000 because we'll have paid for the project and we're awaiting reimbursement from the DNR. Furthermore, if you we have a receivable there of $10,750. The $6,000 was from the DNR. The $4,500 is from the towns. If the towns took a less than, if the towns didn't pay up their pledge until later in the year, that's another $4,500 that wouldn't be available, where we'd be paying for the cash cost of the project, but we wouldn't have the town contribution to fund that part of the project. So if that 10,750 doesn't move anywhere, and we're sitting in December and that 10,750 is still there as is, we would actually have a negative balance in our checking account of around $1,000, which isn't possible. Second aspect of it is the grant that I'm applying for, that I mentioned earlier this evening, could be up to $5,000. That's a reimbursable grant also, where we put the money up ourselves first, and then we're reimbursed after it's done. Now that, from an administrative standpoint, it touts its ease, which makes me think we could do work in September or October and get reimbursed in October or November, so it doesn't seem as spooky. But if the money doesn't show up in a timely fashion from all of our parties, we could be at a zero cash situation, which makes things challenging. The good news on that is I've already had some conversations with Ducks Unlimited that they can help play banker on some of the grants that we're working on. So that'd be something that if we did find ourselves in a position where the town's money didn't show and we got this other $5,000 grant and we had to fund that, I'd reach out to Brian Glinzinski to see what DU could do to help us fund that in the interim. That does come at a cost. You have to pay I'm not sure the terminology they use. It's not just interest. Basically, it is interest. Pick a number, percentage of whatever they're loaning you. You pay them interest for it, which didn't seem like a big deal to me. It was around 10%. It wasn't a great rate, but it was, they're giving us the money. But also, Farmers and Merchants Bank expressed an interest in providing a line of credit for us to fill some of these short-term needs. Their only concern was assignability of the proceeds that would be coming from the grant programs, so that if we didn't hold up our end of the bargain somehow, that they could be reimbursed with the grant money direct and bypass us if administratively I failed to do what I'm supposed to do. So I just painted a picture of doom and gloom that we could be broke, even though we've got plenty of cash. But then I also painted a picture that, it doesn't have to be that bad because there's a couple of parties that can work with us. But the moral of the story is the $9,684, that's the top line on our balance sheet. When all of our parties pay the money, the DNR and the towns, that's how much money is going to be left in the checkbook. So when we emerge into March, April, May of next year, we're going to have about $10,000 in the treasury again. So even if it is a doom and gloom scenario, it's only temporary.
So if we're looking to do a fundraiser or something, what would we expect to have to generate, to have a safe cushion? It almost sounds like, let's ride this one out and see where we end up next year. I mean, would that be a reasonable assessment? I mean, do we need to have to run out and shake some money?
I mean, that's up to everyone to decide for themselves. And financial planning, which is the world I came out of as a CPA, it was, bad things happen. You build in contingencies in case things don't go right, but you don't assume everything's going to go wrong. Right. So, Gary, you had your hand?
Well, I think we should be thinking about what we could do, but you got to take another, $1,700 off that we spent tonight.
True.
Right.
Yep.
I mean,
So possible 1,700. Who knows how much people will donate as far as cost to the food and all that kinds of stuff there.
but we just authorized 1,700. I mean, it could go to that. Looking at the worst case scenario.
Right. But people might come to the open house too and write a check and say thanks for what you're doing. Here's a donation to your organization.
That's what I was going to suggest, that you have a jar or something.
I think we should.
Or donate, or a sign like you have down here that says donations accepted. Or
what is the percentage that Vines and Rushes does?
25% of food.
Do you remember what you made last year?
A little over 100. So it's not a big number. It's nice.
So maybe during the duck season we can get more people there on Monday night.
If they have
do they have an opening?
If they have an opening, they do it half of their Mondays in the year, and I'd guess they're probably all spoken for. But
the only reason I say that is because a big fundraiser, as Nancy knows, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. I mean, you need to start planning now for next spring. So,
do you think there's any possibility that you were saying like about the hunters left in hunting season? Instead of Vines and Rushes, do you think it's something at Log Cabin? Like a Friday night fish trap? When they do it.
The first thing I think of is it takes money out of his pocket. So he's got he's a real business, has real bills to pay. The idea is to get maybe a Saturday night where he doesn't pick a date, whatever night he does that doesn't do very well. Because that's his bread and butter, Friday night.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good idea.
Sunday during football. Well, it's still hunting, but football's going on too. You might have some guys in there Sunday compared to Saturday. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please, Bob.
I have another subject that is on my mind and it needs some investigation.
Is it
How about
related?
What?
Is it fundraising related? Otherwise,
no.
Well, can we would you mind if I saved it for the public input, another section?
Why, certainly, it's okay.
Okay. Just want to put a bow on this. So, it's subjective, right? There's no right or wrong answer. We've got a treasury that's got a decent amount in it. We have enough to fund ourselves. If everything went wrong, I've got a contingency plan that can provide an avenue. And if things go better, then we don't have to go there. If we did go through the contingency route with a DU or farmers and merchants, it'd probably be a pretty minimal cost, I think, for a couple $1,000s to float for a few months.
If we had to do a contingency, do you have one over the other that you'd prefer to go with?
And that's just the goal is keeping the balance greater than $0 in the checking account so we can finish the project.
So it's just as simple as the bank puts a lien against the grant?
Basically.
So I would think that that's the logical thing just to do it, depending on what the cost is.
Yeah,
but then they have a lien on it, right? Possibly?
Yeah.
Where DU wouldn't, right? I don't,
At the end of the day,
I don't like the
it's gotta
word
be
lien.
paid.
Granted, I don't like the word lien.
Well, that's what the bank needs. They
I know,
need
but that's the
security.
thing. What would DU ask?
It'd be only for the amount that they,
Exactly.
you gotta be reimbursed.
Right.
No, I just took out a home equity line of credit, you know, and the thing is it's only what I use, you know, and so you could even establish a line of credit now of X number of dollars, and you know, like for me,
yeah.
if I don't use it, they charge me $75
Right.
a year,
Yeah, yeah.
and probably
it's
that's
sitting
going to be
there
something
if you need
like
it.
that,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, maybe that would be the thing is to kind of just look into that. You know, if it's a relatively minimal cost of, you know, $75 or $100 or something like
Just
that.
an application.
Yeah, and then you have it.
It sounded challenging because we don't have any collateral. Because when Doug and I met Paul, it was, well, what do you have in your balance sheet? It's like cash. We're going to have a grant receivable. And pretty much it came back to, I need assignability of that grant proceeds to the bank in the event that Rush Lake watershed goes poof and the project's unresolved because they're going to want their money. So it didn't sound like they would do it just on, you know, he brought it back. We're still a bank. We still have to follow banking regulations. So
That's
we
what it
need
was.
something.
Well, and as long as we're partnering with DU anyways, if they're offering it, it's like, maybe just go.
If it happens, I want to talk to as many people as I can, and then we can make an informed decision on it. So the question is, fundraising, do we push to do something additional beyond what we've got on the slate, which is just public outreach, which is not really going to have much of a fundraising impact unless some friendly donors approach us. And then next year we would presumably have a Brat Fry again, and Vines and Rushes, if they invite us back, which they said they'd be interested in having us back again. I can ask them if they'd have us again this year. So I'll be interacting with them sometime coming up here to help promote the event and asking if they'd donate something for food and beverages or whatever. So
one question, did you ever look at the Bill Gates Foundation Fund?
No.
Look into that. I know they give out a lot of money for certain situations.
Yeah, if it's environmental, that might be something maybe.
You don't have any.
This gave away $32 billion. I know there's a lot of foundations that get a lot of money from them.
Okay, that's a good idea. Okay. So I'm not hearing any real push to try anything new or extra, which is totally fine. So nothing else on that. We'll move on to scheduling our next general meeting, and then we move on to public input and other.
October 17th is the 3rd.
That is, I know that day and that entire week doesn't work for me, so I would advocate for a different week, but don't let me stop the organization.
Well, you're running the
We kind
meeting
of need you
mostly,
there.
so.
Let's pick a time when Brett can be here.
What you got?
The whole month is great. The town hall here, you know, the town's great because we get to count the meeting space towards grant match. It's basically free all month, except for Mondays for town plan commission and town board meeting, and the first Saturday of October. So we could do the Thursday before, which what would that be, the 10th?
The 10th or
the 24th. Doesn't really matter to me. Grant-wise, Melissa, would you have a preference one way or the other with authorizing resolutions and us drafting a 2020 broad-scale lake planning grant?
Yeah.
No preference? Because I think subject matter, you know, we'd be talking about lake management planning, but also probably a peek around the corner at 2020, because the 2020 application's due December 10th. So I almost like the Saturday after, or the Thursday after, the 24th better, because it gives us more time to work with the adaptive management committee to figure out what we need to put in that grant application.
And then you get more public people here on the 24th too.
Yeah.
Just because I think the week of the 7th is when hunting's off.
No, it could be.
Yeah.
Well, then why don't we do the 24th then?
All right.
24th of what?
24th.
October.
All right. So October 24th, plan on 7 o'clock here at Nepeuskun Town Hall. All right. So then, hearing nothing otherwise, we'll plan on October 24th, Thursday, 7 p.m. here at the Nepeuskun Town Hall. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next section, other and public input. Bob, you wanted to get into something, please?
Yes, I do.
Get into it.
Seeing we took care of the north landing and dredging of the channel and so forth is accomplished, and I would be interested in finding out more. Why couldn't we redo the Blackburns ditch off of Mountain Road so that we could get fresh water all the way down to the lake? And if that can be with the right kind of equipment dug when the marsh is low or when it's froze, and how we would go about. Ellen, does that belong to the DNR now? Do you know, Ron?
I don't think it does. Just to the.
Well, I thought it was changed some time ago. Somebody else has it, Conservancy District, or?
It's all posted right now.
Is it again?
Would be the south. It's all posted, but there's nothing posted right there where the ditch is. So we have to look into it. We're just looking at GIS.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if we could find out more about it, and if it would be worth it to the people that hunt up on that end could use some fresh water.
So Bob, talk more, it's clogged up or it's filled in, or
it doesn't,
what's the issue?
I can speak for him also. It doesn't flow like it did before they changed the culvert. Whoever, the town did it or whoever did it. It's just between the 07 restoration and the culvert being, the height being changed, it clogged up. So it's full of sediment on the west side, and it just doesn't flow. Even when high water comes through, it hasn't pushed the sediment.
So if the county redid the culvert, made that up?
I still think it's too, it needs to have a swamp fill go in and out. Probably.
It's all mud, it needs to be dug and with...
See, my water all goes through there, but it goes past the old sod farm, and that's, there's ain't much water sits in there.
It doesn't come out of the sod farm anymore, they dammed it up.
Yeah. Right, but it goes around the sod farm, and then it doesn't go to the lake like it used to.
No.
And I went to see Land and Water because I'm thinking it's kind of corpse my tail.
Yeah.
And we looked at some maps, and there's all kinds of different people that own that now. I don't know whether you can, and you can see where some of it, I don't know. My neighbor said he thought that actually some of those guys filled them in because it was too hard to get over it with their four-wheelers. So they actually,
No, they have bridges going across. They didn't ever fill it in, but they have homemade dams in there. They blocked it up.
Yeah.
What are we talking again?
And see,
that's
Okay.
That's why you see the water.
Yeah.
If the town wouldn't have raised the road 15 years ago, whenever it did, you'd be driving through water every day. I mean, that road would be flooded out.
Right. And, EPS can have to raise theirs a little bit. So you can,
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you too, Nancy. You
Yep.
you wouldn't get down there.
No. And as it is right now anyways, we need that culvert done. where the dirt road kicks in.
So,
and stuff, 'cause that's all heaped up.
That's a whole different,
It is,
that's a
it
different
is.
subject from what Bob's talking
is,
about, but
it
it's
is.
very valid.
Yeah, because all of it is, it's like wet
Right.
and mucky, it sits and it stinks and it's, yeah.
And you
It's
know,
affecting all of it.
Mrs. Blackburn was here years and years ago, and she said when the fish could swim up there easily. Now, I've nothing in my ditch anymore. I used to always have minnows and odd stuff. She thought that those fish were actually doing or whatever they do in the spring. Doug, and maybe she's wrong, maybe she's not. But don't those fish, like the perch, have to go up in the marshes? Isn't that what they?
Some of them do, yes.
Yes, they do. But it would take, by Blackburns, it would take something, there's a ledge there where you could get equipment out to dig to a certain point, but to get it to go all the way to flow right, it would take something like a swamp dowel, because it all grew in tight.
Yeah.
And with the water up, it has helped a lot. It's got a new way out.
I think it helped this spring, all that water kept rushing through there, so pushing so hard.
Because for the first time, I believe, since the drawdown, since the 2011 drought, or 12 drought, I could actually drive. This last fall, I ran a boat all the way, with a go double, all the way to Mountain Road.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But it took some gumption.
Yeah.
Alice Blackburn thought that she had raised those fish in that area there. She had planted some fish there, and she thought they were there because of that. But they were there because of the culvert being high, and when the water went over it and aerated it and brought the perch up there when there was freeze out.
But it also had a good flow. The flow was gone. Well, for the most part.
The flow shouldn't have changed any because that goes up towards Pickett's and wherever all. There's a ditch that comes down through there.
Right. It goes into the marsh slowly now instead of going down a channel.
Exactly. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah. So I ran the snowmobile up there last winter, and a guy walked out there and drilled holes to try to fish, and it was just muck. But it's two separate areas that have similar problems. One is man-made, and the other one's nature.
Yeah, when they lowered the culvert, it quit oxidizing the water. But it didn't do anything to keep the water from, something else happened to keep the water in the channel from the lake.
During the drawdown, everything closed up on the other end, and then it opened up a little bit, and then it closed up again in 11, and then it got really bad.
Well, it's pretty bad right near the road now, where the culvert is and all that is just muck and.
But if you go further in, it winds down and then it gets into just an old big old cattail.
Well, I was just in thought that it could be opened up so you'd get water into the lake.
Well, the spray really helped. We sprayed there in 16, right? That really helped a lot.
That was a square foot. You took me up in there.
Yeah. No, that was probably 08. No, in 16, on the outlet of Blackburn's ditch towards the lake, there's 8 or 10 acres that was sprayed in there.
Oh.
So it might get better on its own.
Well, like I said, it's the first I've driven up there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it needs a little bit of help.
Yeah.
What's the objective now to cleaning this out? What's the reason for it? Is
it would move water from the east side of Mountain Road down that ditch. That ditch was probably 20 feet wide, approximately, and that would move water down to the lake and try to clear out some of the cattails at the outlet. Brett, you go up there hunting, don't you, in that direction?
Not by Blackburns.
What it would
north of Curtis.
What it would do if you had the swamp bill and went all the way through there, all the way up to the culvert, you provide another access to the lake.
They still come out that way, Doug. They still paddle through there.
Some people do go through there.
They hunt the channel.
Water into the lake
That's
faster.
actually pretty good.
You want to maintain the water level.
It just doesn't. There's very little.
Unless there's a big drainage issue with farmers.
But Gary's 100% right with what he's talking about too. There's standing water all along Island Road.
Right.
Because there's nowhere for it to go.
Right. But that's a whole different issue.
It's a whole different issue. That's man-made dam done. I don't
Those
know
aren't some
how
issues
it's
that I
legally-
think we can do anything about, really. 'Cause
Can you legally dam up and make a lake?
not if it goes on somebody else's property.
No.
But it's like digging a pond. You can dig a pond.
You
just better not put the dirt around the pond.
I don't think you can dig a pond without a permit.
Gotta have permit to dig a pond even on high.
Yeah.
Do you not?
Yes.
Last time I was gonna dig one, so you don't need to check.
You might be able to dig one, Gary, but most people can't.
Depends on what time of the day you dig that pond.
Always easier to ask forgiveness sometimes.
Yeah. So what do we?
Yeah, what are we talking about? Because Bob, your comment was there isn't flow in Blackburns ditch, which is kind of north of the sod farm, roughly oriented from Mountain Road heading west into Rush Lake.
Yes.
But the sod farm and what you mentioned, Todd, that's south of there, right? And asked the question, like, can you dam something up into a lake? I haven't seen it, so I don't, I know what it looks like driving on Island Road that, oh gee, there's a bunch of water out there, and, there's like a hunt club or something out there where they hunt that stuff, so, I don't know. I would assume it's on the up and up, but I haven't explored anything. But that seems like a separate topic. Or are they the same?
Nope. Wait a
Well,
minute.
if it's navigable water though,
You can't lock it up.
you can't
There is
block
na-
nothing that's navigable.
And
It's only
there is
navigable during certain times of the
navigable.
year.
There is navigable because Lehman has his off of Island Road there. Because Todd and I were out there last year and stuff, and he does mentoring with kids and that takes youth hunts and stuff. And I've never been in like that. You can see his trailer and stuff from the road from Island, and yeah, you can put a boat out there and it's like nice and wide open, like out in front of our place.
I couldn't get to Mountain Road until this year, but you used to be able to tee off, and it was, 2 years ago, I drove to the sod farm from the lake, so it's absolutely navigable. And I got to the dam, I was like, can't go that way anymore.
No.
And I went around the other way, under the bridge that they have going across, and we got to a certain point, and that was diked. I don't know, the sod, how far does it go back? I don't know. How much was created with the sod farm, how much is, I would imagine it's all legal, because it's all within the last 15 years.
Yeah, like you said too, there's multiple owners with it now.
I just don't, it is navigable, if I said it the right way. You can navigate the water.
Yes. Yeah.
To a point that it's dammed up. That's a fact.
Well, then probably the thing would be is to research is when that dam went in and if there's been a permit for it.
I don't think that's really our position. Is it?
I don't know. Our mission is to,
It's the watershed.
I forget exactly, but to basically maximize the,
Well, we can
How
talk to
dare I?
some of the neighbors, Cam.
I used to recite this in the mirror every morning to myself. Our mission is dedicated to implementing a practical plan that allows Rush Lake, its affiliated streams and connected wetlands to achieve their full recreational, aesthetic, and wildlife potentials for the mutual benefit of those who live, work, study, and recreate in the watershed. So if there was navigable water and it was public water and somebody has since put a blockage there which prevents navigability, you could argue that exploring that is part of that. And it's not, we're trying to restrict something somebody's doing, we're just trying to understand it better because you've been back there before and you aren't able to get back there now. So, Dave Bolha is the DNR streams guy that Ted Johnson teed me up with on some of this water collection stuff. I could tee up an email to him and just get his take on it, just to poke around a little bit. Not like we're looking to bust anybody or anything.
Most of it's private property. There's no doubt about it.
But you can't own the water.
Well, that's the question. Yeah, absolutely.
You own the dirt underneath the stream, but you don't own the water.
Right.
So on that topic, should I do that? Just
Well, yeah, if it's part of what we should be doing, absolutely. I agree with that. So,
Valid citizens' request or questioning of the process, and we're the people that could possibly help. I mean, we're a vehicle.
well, I think just for the residents of Highland Road, it should be looked into, which isn't necessarily part of this. Well, it is part of it. It's part of the watershed. It's
It is
watershed.
part, yeah.
for the benefit of those who live, work, and
So the
recreate in the
residents-
watershed.
The residents live. I need access in and out. We need access in and out.
Okay, so I'll tee up some communication with Dave Bolha, the DNR Streams guy, and see where I get with that, and revisit this at another meeting.
Oh. Yes and no.
And I'm not pursuing with any bias that something is wrong or is right. I just don't know. Right? I'm just asking.
Right. I'm not claiming that either. All I know is what's there.
Okay. Okay, and then the other, so back to what Bob started with. So Ron, you asked what's the benefit of this, or what's the objective?
That's my question.
Did we get an answer on the question to your satisfaction? Because I'm kind of lost.
It seems to me that people want to have better access to get around out there. And my opinion is, unless there are landowners that want better drainage and they want the water to get to Rush Lake faster, I always felt that it seems to me like the goal of DNR and those type of regulatory agencies is to impound as much water as possible, keep the marshes full. So, if we're going to send the water to the lake that much faster, we have to maintain the water level in the lake. That means we're going to have to let it out of the lake faster. Unless there's I can understand maybe where people want better access so they can drive their Go Devil and go around out there, but I just don't understand. Other than I think it's an access issue, or is that something that we really need to pursue?
I'm looking at it, Ron, that it's nature. It's been taken away from the way the natural was 20, 30 years ago. That was a wide ditch. It was 3 feet deep and moved water, and it was, they could go, they didn't have it. Mrs. Blackburn had it at that time, so you were trespassing if you were putting a boat in or walking there, but I'm not sure if that hasn't been transferred to the Conservancy District or something. You'd have to check that out first.
I'm sure part of it is, Bob. I just don't know if it's all of it.
Well, then TNC gave most of that to us, so maybe we do want. I'll look into it for you, but.
Yeah. The one thing that I do remember with getting.
Can I give a comment on this?
Sure.
You guys are not going back far enough. There never used to be ditches.
Right.
Ditches is a modern thing. This is everybody when they get the water out. You changing the dynamics of the marsh. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just ditches. So where did you put the water from the dirt from the ditch on both sides? So it can't get into the marsh. The marsh is not being used the way it should be. Everybody back years ago had to ditch their 40 to be able to hay. That changed the dynamics of the marsh. It should go back the way it was. It'll filter out sooner or later it'll get there. That's it.
Thank you. Any other discussion or debate on the topic? I didn't really hear a proposal in there for something that we'd be working on, other than Ellen would check to see if DNR owned it, but that's whether she says yes or no, that doesn't really change any.
Well, the only thing that could be done is if the slop devil came out,
That would be the easiest probably.
You might have to have a permit.
Yeah.
And that's, but
Just
no,
maybe,
no,
just
Ellen,
maybe.
it's the ingress and egress, and that's the one thing that the state wanted for a permit.
I'll ask. That's all I can
Just
do.
for discussion, actually, I'm just speaking out loud. That was the biggest item that the state wanted. Does anybody remember that? Remember, Doug?
You mean for the north landing?
Yeah.
That was part of it, yeah.
We got to make paths, so but we had to say we were going somewhere. You just couldn't you just couldn't make a path. It had to have a purpose.
For the purpose. Yeah. Well, that would qualify for that.
My memory is not the best, but so anyway, just try to table it for future.
That's just
I'll do my best. I'll look into it. I'll let you know.
Informal inquiry.
Just to get a start,
Yeah.
just find out.
Table it till October, or
Even later.
yeah.
Should I table it to January? Because it's not like anything would happen in fall.
Right. Just depends on permitting. If it's even going to
I
happen.
will find out by your fall meeting. There.
We'll just have a short discussion.
Stop.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll add it as an agenda item for the fall meeting. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Do you have anything further on that for tonight?
No.
No? Thank you. Okay, any other public input or commentary?
I have one comment. There's a private foundation that's always looking for money out of Omro. Will you remind me to look up the name? I'm blanking it right now. But I think that could potentially solve your cash flow problem.
Okay. I'll follow up with you on that later. Thank you.
I have a question about the Opinionaire.
Yes, please.
And the purpose behind it, and what you're going to do with it. So, are you just looking to try and get a sampling of what people's desires are, or are you trying to draw from that some type of consensus on which direction you should take the lake management?
Do you want me to address that, Brett?
Sure.
I think it's both. I mean, we're trying to get a better sense of, how are people using the lake, what are some of the issues they've had, what are their concerns, what do they want to see, and all of that will inform how we move forward. And we'll try to get input from as many people as possible. So we make the right decision for the greatest number of people.
I have two quick remarks on it. We didn't get a good example from Jordan at DNR on a survey or an opinionaire that we can follow, but the closest thing that we did have to follow that Ted directed us to was Lake Puckaway, and the majority of respondents in their survey said the biggest challenge for Puckaway that's bad for the lake is the water is too low. The water needs to be higher. But in their lake management plan, they identify the water's not going to be any higher. They're going to build a new dam that'll better regulate it, keep it lower, in fact. So their public survey, everybody said, we want this, but the answer was, yeah, sorry, you can't get that. But on the other hand, I've found myself, just being the president of Rush Lake Watershed, when I talk to people, like, what do you think you want to do with the project? And I can say, well, I think we're going to be going after invasive cattail covering 80% of the lake. But if we go out with this Opinionaire and we hear enough people saying, hey, this is something you should look at over here, then maybe the light bulb goes on and we approach phase 2 of the large-scale planning grant and implementation grants differently. So it's to take the brainstorming that happens in meetings like this and in the steering committee too, and open it up so that we've got more input and can put a better work product out forward. So I hope that didn't sound like I was talking about both sides of the mouth too much, but
no, thank you.
We'll have to address everyone's concern in the plan that we put together.
part of the due diligence.
It's part of the due diligence.
Any other questions?
Question, Brett, did we get any results back from your water test?
Yes, the main sample results are back. 6 streams, 2 lake sites. Everything was looking good. One of the stream sites just barely went over the threshold for where it looks a little high on phosphorus, but everything else was looking really nice.
What stream is that?
I believe it's the Mountain Road one. There's 2 along Mountain Road. There's the one at Blackburns Ditch, I guess, if you know, the north one of the 2, right at the culvert on the east side of the road. The other one I have to get in a skiff where Mountain Road does that 90-degree turn. I have to get in a skiff in the water there, go out 100 yards, and then head south 50 yards. That's the one that was a little bit high. A little bit high meaning just barely too high. Those are ones where the summer, like the late summer and into fall readings were off the charts for that spot. So to see it have a more reasonable level at the beginning of the year was positive development. Any other questions or comments?
With all due respect, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made, seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. We will see you in October.